Hello, here I am with another mini lesson number 2, which is about successful interactions. Okay, and again, while I'm not going to deal with it in too much detail, I would like to point out a couple of important things to be aware of when we're talking about interactions. What do we mean by interaction? What is the key goal when we're talking about a successful interaction? Okay, I hope it helps. And as you can see, I am going to particularly pay attention to reacting and responding to your partner, which is something that unfortunately I see very little of in many exam interactions. No, most times what I see, it looks a lot like this. The typical problem is 2 or 3 people talking. Okay, they are engaged somehow in the same conversation, but they are working independently. They don't really react to each other. They seem to know what they want to say, but they don't build on their partner's contributions. So therefore, what happens is that the outcome is not a real conversation, actually, because there is very little reaction or reference to their partner's words. All you do are usually some tiny independent monologues, which may include some very, very good vocabulary and grammar, but it is a monologue, it is not an interaction. And sometimes, unfortunately, collaboration comes down to things like, I agree with you or I don't agree with you. Okay, so I would like to consider and that you bear in mind that actually, if you think about it, if you think about your own conversations and when you interact with your friends or your colleagues or your relatives, really a conversation is about listening carefully to each other and to your partner in this case. No, reacting to what they say, not just saying I agree or I don't agree, but responding, showing some interest in what they say. And in the end, really, it's all about building the conversation together, which means that the outcome may be unpredictable. In the end, it just develops spontaneously depending on what each other says. But that is what the interaction is all about. Effectively navigating in that spontaneous the spontaneous outcomes of what your partner may say, and building on top of that. Okay, so this is what I think a conversation should look like. All right, where your words and your partner's words somehow merge, okay, to create something unique, okay, and interesting. So how does this translate into language? Again, these are just some minor ideas. Of course, you have more information online, you have more information in your books, but this is just for you to see some examples of what I'm referring to. So for instance, listen carefully, and not only listen, but show you are listening. So things like, oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting example. If it were the case, I'd never thought of that before. I see. That is quite true. Or, oh, yes. All these cues, okay, to show that you are actually listening to your partner. All right. Okay. And if you listen carefully to your partner, you may have the chance to react to what they say. And instead of just saying, okay, I agree with you, which sometimes is very imprecise, because what exactly are you agreeing with? Okay, do you agree with everything your partner said or one specific point? If that is the case, I strongly recommend referring to that specific information, saying things like, I agree with you about da 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 da. What you said about that issue was a very good point. And I totally understand what you mean by the problems that people may come across in that community. All right. And also, you may want to show agreement. For example, instead of saying only I agree with you, why not express your enthusiasm? You are absolutely right about that. I totally agree. Yes, definitely. You're right. When you show, when you actually do agree, and when your partner is saying and expressing something you would express as well, go ahead and let your partner know, because it creates an atmosphere of collaboration and of understanding. And similarly, if you don't agree with a particular point, you can react, showing disagreement, but always using the right tone, which would be something like, I see what you mean, but I'm not sure about that actually, or actually, I have some doubts about that. Okay, again, these are just a couple of examples of many, of a great range of possibilities that you can listen to when you listen to interviews on YouTube or podcasts, or even the ones that you have in your books of reference. Okay, so hopefully you will go towards this and you will have some wonderful conversations together.